The mining ship Prosperity's Edge drifted through the asteroid field like a metal whale among stone fish. Captain Hana Kim watched the screens in her command chair, her dark eyes tracking the small dots that marked valuable ore deposits. Around her, the bridge hummed with quiet activity as her crew worked their shifts. Rock 7 Alpha looks good, called out Taeyeon Park from his engineering station. His fingers danced over the controls as he guided the mining drones toward a promising asteroid. Iron content is high, and I'm seeing traces of rare metals. Hana nodded. Mark it for full extraction. We need to fill our holds before the next supply run. She stretched in her chair, feeling the familiar ache in her shoulders from too many hours on duty. The Kepler 442 system was profitable, but it was also lonely work. The nearest human colony was 3 months away by jump drive dot at the communication station. Ji-won Yoon looked up from her console. Captain, I'm getting some strange signals on the long-range array. Might be interference from the solar storms we detected yesterday. Put it through the filters, Hana said. Clean it up as much as you can. The bridge fell quiet, except for the soft beeping of instruments. Outside the viewports, the asteroid field stretched endlessly in all directions. Chunks of rock and metal tumbled slowly in the weak gravity of the system's distant star. This was home for the crew of the Prosperity's Edge. Not comfortable, but home. Minji Lee emerged from the medical bay, carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired. As the ship's doctor, she spent most of her time treating minor injuries from the young. Dangerous work of space mining. Any word from Earth Command about our supply request? She asked. Still waiting, Hannah replied. You know how slow the bureaucrats are. They'll probably tell us to make do with what we have. Woo-sung Choi, the security chief, laughed from his station near the weapons controls. Make do? We've been making do for 6 months. Half our mining equipment is held together with prayer. And spare parts. Taeyeon grinned. Hey, my repairs work fine. That drill arm hasn't failed once since I fixed it. It makes a horrible grinding noise every time we use it, Minji pointed out. That's just character, Taeyeon said. Like an old dog that snores. The easy banter stopped when Ji-won suddenly sat up straight at her station. Captain, you need to hear this. I've cleaned up the signal, and it's not interference. It's a transmission. Hana turned toward the communications officer. What kind of transmission? Unknown language, unknown origin, but Captain. Ji-won's voice was uncertain. It sounds desperate, like a distress call. Put it on speakers. The bridge filled with strange sounds. Clicks and whistles mixed with what might have been words, but in no language any human had ever heard. The tone was unmistakable, though. Fear. Panic. Someone or something was crying out for help. How far away is the source? Hannah asked. Ji-won checked her instruments. At least 15 light years, maybe more. This signal has been traveling for a long time to reach us. Taeyeon frowned. 15 light years? There are no human colonies out that far. No registered ships either. Then who sent it? Minji asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. The crew of the Prosperity's Edge looked at each other with growing excitement and worry. First contact with alien life had always been a possibility, but most people thought it would happen to important ships with important people, not to a small mining crew working the outer systems. Can you run it through the translation programs? Hana asked Ji-won. Already started? The computer is trying to find patterns, but this could take hours, maybe days. Ji-won paused the recording and played it again from the beginning. Wait, there's something else. The signal is repeating, but there are new parts being added each time. Like they're trying different languages? Maybe, or maybe they're getting more desperate. Woo-sung moved closer to Hannah's chair. Captain, if this is real contact with aliens, We should report it to Earth Command immediately. This is way above our level. Hana nodded slowly. You're right. But Earth Command is months away. If someone needs help right now, we're a mining ship, Minji said gently. We have basic defensive weapons and emergency medical supplies. What could we possibly do against an alien threat? Maybe nothing, Hana admitted. But we're also human. And humans don't walk away when someone calls for help. The bridge was quiet again as the crew thought about this. They were simple people doing a simple job. Mining asteroids wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work that helped feed the growing human colonies. None of them had ever expected to face a decision that might change history. G1 suddenly gasped. Captain, the translation program found something. It's partial, but listen to this. She played a section of the recording that had been filtered through the computer's language analysis. The alien words were still there, but now text appeared on the screen as the computer tried to match meaning to sounds. Help ... Please ... dying. The metal ones come. Harvest all ... legends speak of Deathworld warriors. Third spiral arm ... Please ... The crew stared at the words on the screen. Deathworld warriors from the third spiral arm. That was where Earth was located. Someone out there knew about humans, and they were calling for help. Metal ones, Taeyeon said quietly. Sounds like machines. Robot ships, maybe? And they called us Deathworld warriors, Wuzong added. Makes it sound like our reputation has spread. Hannah stood up from her command chair and walked to the main view screen. Beyond the asteroid field, space stretched away toward the unknown. Somewhere out there, aliens were fighting for their lives against metal enemies. And somehow they had heard of humans. Plot a course for the signal source, she said finally. Captain? Minji asked. Hannah turned back to face her crew. These people had followed her into the dangerous work of deep space mining. They trusted her to keep them safe and bring them home. Now she was asking them to fly toward unknown danger to help strangers they had never seen. Someone is calling for help, she said simply. They know about us somehow. They think we can make a difference. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe we'll get out there and find nothing but empty space. But if there's even a chance that we can help, she looked at each of them in turn. We have to try. Taeyeon was the first to speak. The engines can handle a long-range jump. It'll use most of our fuel, but we can make it. Jiwon nodded. I'll keep working on the translation. Maybe we can learn more about what we're flying into. Minji sighed. I'll prepare the medical bay. If we're really going to help in some kind of war, we'll need all the supplies we can carry. Wuzong moved to his weapons console. Our defensive systems aren't much, but I'll make sure everything is ready. Hannah felt a warmth in her chest as she looked at her crew. These were good people. The kind of people who would fly across the galaxy to help strangers because it was the right thing to do. Set course for the source of the transmission, she ordered. Maximum burn. We're going to make history. 3 weeks of hard travel through jump space brought the Prosperity's edge to the edge of an alien star system. The moment they dropped back into normal space, the crew knew they were too late to prevent a disaster. Sweet mother of ... Wuzong breathed, staring at his tactical display. The system was a graveyard. Massive ships hung dead in space around a blue-green world that should have been beautiful. Instead, the planet was covered in dark scars where something had stripped away forests and cities. Debris fields marked where orbital stations had once protected the world below. Those ships, Taeyeon said, pointing at the screen. They're huge. Each one is bigger than our entire mining platform back home. Captain Hana moved closer to the displays. The alien vessels were like nothing humans had ever built. They looked grown rather than constructed, with smooth curves and strange angles. That hurt to look at for too long. Many of them were clearly damaged, trailing atmosphere and debris. Life signs? Hannah asked. Minji checked her medical sensors. Faint readings from some of the ships. Whatever species built these, they're still alive, barely. And the planet? Massive population centers, but the readings are confused. It's like something is interfering with the sensors. Jiwan suddenly turned from her communication station. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's in the same language as the distress call, but this time the translation program is working better. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was obviously not human. It was too musical, with harmonics that made it sound like singing, even when the words were desperate. Unknown vessel, please identify yourself. This system is under siege by the harvesters. If you have weapons, we beg for your assistance. If you do not, flee while you still can. Hannah stepped toward the communication station. This is Captain Hannah Kim of the human vessel Prosperity's Edge. We received your distress call. We are here to help. The silence that followed lasted so long that Hannah wondered if the transmission had been cut. Then the musical voice returned, filled with something that might have been shock. Did you say human? From the third spiral arm? The Deathworld species? That's us, Hannah confirmed. What's your situation down there? I am Fleet Commander Kelfara of the Villani Defense Force. What remains of it? The voice paused. Forgive me, Captain Kim, but we sent our distress call to dozens of systems. No one responded. We did not truly believe anyone would come. Well, we're here now. What are these harvesters you mentioned? Machine intelligences. They arrived 6 months ago and began systematically stripping our worlds of all resources. Metals, minerals, even organic matter. 12 of our colony worlds have already fallen. This is our homeworld, our last stand. Taeyun was scanning the system with his engineering sensors. Captain, I'm detecting massive mechanical ships near the outer planets. They're mining operations, but on a scale I've never seen. They're literally taking apart those worlds piece by piece. The harvesters. Do not negotiate, Kelthara continued. They do not respond to communication. They simply consume everything in their path and move on to the next system. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Our ships cannot match their speed or firepower. Hannah looked around at her crew. They were miners, not soldiers. Their ship carried basic defensive weapons and mining equipment. Against an enemy that had defeated an entire alien civilization, what could they possibly do? Commander Kelthara, we'd like to meet with you face to face. Can you receive our shuttle? You would come aboard our ships? Even knowing the danger? We came this far, Hannah said. A little further won't hurt. An hour later, Hannah and Minji were riding their small shuttle toward one of the damaged alien vessels. The ship they approached was beautiful despite its wounds. It looked like it was made of crystal and metal that flowed together like water. Parts of it glowed with soft light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Docking bay is opening, Minji reported from the pilot's seat. Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours, but I can manage the approach. They settled into the alien docking bay with a soft thump. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see tall, graceful figures waiting for them. The bay filled with atmosphere, and soon they were breathing air that smelled like flowers and rain. The airlock opened, and Hannah got her first look at an alien being. Commander Kelthara stood nearly 7 feet tall, but was so thin and delicate that she looked like she might break in a strong wind. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer like water. Her eyes were large and silver, and when she spoke, her voice created visible patterns in the air around her. Captain Kim, Kelthara said, inclining her head in what might have been a bow. I am honored to meet a Deathworld warrior at last. Just a minor, Hana said, extending her hand. But thank you for having us. Kelthara stared at the offered hand for a moment, then carefully touched it with her own. Her fingers were longer than human fingers, with too many joints. Her skin felt cool and smooth. So strong, Kelthara whispered. The stories spoke truly. Your people are built for survival. Minji was looking around the docking bay with professional interest. Commander, I am a medical officer. Would it be possible to examine some of your wounded? I might be able to help. You would treat Vellani. Injuries? Even though we are not your people? Suffering is suffering, Minji said simply. If I can help, I will. Kelthara led them through corridors that looked like the inside of a living creature. The walls curved and flowed, and everything was lit by that same soft, pulsing light. They passed other Vellani, all tall and graceful and fragile-looking. Many showed signs of injury. Your people are hurt, Hana observed. The harvesters do not only destroy our ships, Kelthara explained. They send smaller machines to board our vessels. These machines are programmed to capture living beings for study. Many of our people have been taken. Those who escape are often injured. They reached what appeared to be a medical facility. Minji immediately went to work examining injured Vellani, while Hana spoke with Kelthara about the tactical situation. Show me how the harvesters fight, Hana said. Kelthara activated a display that showed the recent battles. The harvester ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons striking with mathematical precision. The Vellani ships tried to respond with their own precise formations and carefully planned attacks. I see the problem, Hana said after watching several battle recordings. You do? You're fighting them like they're alive. But they're machines. They think like machines, predictable, logical. Hana paused the display and pointed at the screen. What happens if you do something completely illogical? Kelthara's silver eyes widened. Illogical? But why would we do something that makes no sense? Because it might be the only thing that does make sense against an enemy like this. At the medical station, Minji was cleaning and bandaging wounds on a young Vellani who looked like he couldn't be more than a teenager. These injuries, she said to Kelthara, they're not severe by human standards, but they seem to be life-threatening to your people. Vellani physiology is delicate, Kelthara confirmed. We evolved on a peaceful world with few dangers. We are not built for violence or hardship. Minji nodded thoughtfully. That explains a lot. You're fighting an enemy that specializes in violence, but violence is foreign to your nature. Whereas humans, Kelthara said, evolved on a death world where violence and hardship shaped every aspect of your development, we prefer to call. It's challenging, Hana said with a slight smile. But yes, we've had to learn to be tough to survive. They spent several more hours aboard the Vellani ship, learning about the enemy they faced and the people they were trying to help. The harvesters were vast in number and technologically superior. The Vellani were peaceful, intelligent, and completely unprepared for total war. But as they prepared to return to the Prosperity's edge, Hana was beginning to form an idea. It was crazy, dangerous, and would probably get them all killed. But it might be the only chance the Vellani had. Commander Kelthara, she said as they reached the docking bay, how many ships do you have left? Perhaps 50 vessels that can still fight. Maybe twice that number of civilian ships. And how many people? Nearly 1 million on the planet below. Perhaps 50,000 in the fleet. Hana nodded. We're going to need every ship you have. Civilian, military, cargo haulers, everything. For what purpose? To do something completely insane, Hana said. Something so illogical that even machines won't see it coming. As their shuttle returned to the Prosperity's edge, Minji looked at her captain with concern. Hana, we're talking about 50 humans against an entire machine fleet. What can we possibly do? Hannah watched the damaged Villani ships growing smaller behind them. We're going to teach these machines something new, she said. We're going to show them what happens when Deathworlders fight. The war room aboard the largest Villani vessel was filled with crystalline displays showing the grim reality of their situation. Holographic images of harvester ships floated in the air like deadly ghosts, their mechanical forms bristling with weapons that had already proven unstoppable. Hannah stood before a gathering of Villani commanders and her own crew, studying the tactical displays. The enemy had numerical superiority, technological superiority, and had already proven they could defeat conventional tactics. Any sane military leader would be planning an evacuation, not an attack. The harvesters have a central coordination system, Jiwan explained, pointing to the largest enemy vessel. Every ship in their fleet receives orders from that command ship. They move as one unit, like fingers on a hand. Commander Kalfara nodded sadly. We discovered this early in the conflict. We attempted to target their command vessel, but it is too heavily defended. Our weapons cannot penetrate its shields. That's because you've been thinking about this wrong, Hannah said. You don't need to destroy the command ship. You just need to confuse it. The Villani commanders looked at each other with expressions that might have been confusion. Their delicate features and large silver eyes made them look perpetually surprised, but Hannah was beginning to read their body language. I do not understand, said Fleet Commander Thelanara, Kalfara's second in command. How does one confuse? A machine intelligence? Wu Zeng stepped forward, grinning. By being human. On the Prosperity's edge, Taiyun was working with Villani engineers to retrofit their civilian ships. The elegant alien vessels were never designed for combat, but human mining equipment was teaching them new possibilities. This cargo hauler, Taiyun said, patting the hull of a graceful ship that looked like a flying work of art. We can mount mining charges all along the cargo bay doors. When it gets close to a harvester ship, we blow the charges and turn the entire vessel into a shotgun blast of metal fragments. The Villani engineer, a tall female named Liriana, watched with fascination and horror. But the ship will be destroyed, and the crew will eject in escape pods just before detonation, Taiyun finished. It's dangerous, but it's survivable, and it'll give the harvesters something they've never seen before. This seems... Liriana struggled for words. Wasteful. Inefficient. Why would you sacrifice valuable ships for such limited damage? Because it's not about the damage, Taiyun explained. It's about the surprise. Machines think in patterns. They calculate cost versus benefit. They expect their enemies to do the same. But humans? He smiled. Sometimes we do things just because they're crazy enough to work. In the medical bay, Minji was training Villani medical staff in human emergency techniques. The aliens were naturally gifted healers, but their methods were gentle and time-consuming. Humans had learned to practice medicine in crisis situations. Battlefield medicine isn't about perfect healing, Minji explained to a group of Villani doctors. It's about keeping people alive long enough to get them to proper medical care. Speed over precision. Function over perfection. Dr. Velenith, the chief medical officer, watched as Minji demonstrated rapid wound sealing techniques. Your methods are so aggressive. Do they not cause additional trauma? Some, Minji admitted. But death causes more trauma than rough medicine. We've learned that sometimes you have to hurt someone a little to save their life. The concept seemed to disturb the Villani medical staff, but they were intelligent enough to understand the necessity. Their people were dying, and gentle medicine was a luxury they could no longer afford. Back in the war room, Hannah was explaining the battle plan to increasingly worried Villani commanders. Phase 1. We hit them with everything we have, but not where they expected, she said. Traditional formation, traditional approach, traditional target selection. This will be what they're prepared for. And Phase 2? Kalthara asked. Phase 2 is where it gets interesting. We break formation. Every ship attacks a different target. No coordination, no pattern, no logic. Just chaos. But without coordination, our ships will be vulnerable to friendly fire incidents, protested Commander. Thalanara. That's why we're training your crews in human combat communication protocols, Jiwan said. Short, simple, direct. No complex coordination. Just basic awareness of where everyone is. Phase 3, Hana continued, is where we get really crazy. Ramming attacks, suicide runs. Ships ejecting their entire cargo loads as improvised weapons. Everything that makes no military sense at all. The silence in the room was profound. The Vellani commanders stared at Hana as if she had just proposed they all jump into a black hole. Captain Kim, Kothara said carefully, this plan seems to rely on sacrificing our ships and risking our crews for minimal tactical gain. No, Hana said firmly. It relies on overloading their decision-making systems. Machines think fast, but they still have to think. If we can hit them with more variables than they can process, their coordination will break down. Wu Zeng had returned from the ship modifications and added his own perspective. I've been studying their battle recordings. The harvesters adapt to new tactics within minutes. But they adapt by finding patterns. If there's no pattern to find, they'll waste processing power trying to predict unpredictable behavior. Tayan. Finished. Like trying to solve an equation with no solution. And while they're trying to figure out what we're doing, Hana said, we'll be hitting them with everything we have. Over the next 2 days, the combined human Vellani fleet prepared for battle. The preparations were unlike anything the Vellani had ever seen. Where their normal tactics emphasized coordination and precision, the humans were teaching them chaos and improvisation. Vellani pilots practiced random flight patterns that violated every principle of space combat they had ever learned. Engineering crews learned to jury-rig weapons from mining equipment and civilian systems. Medical teams prepared for casualty rates that made their gentle hearts ache. Your people are teaching us to be monsters, Kalthara said to Hana during one of their planning sessions. No, Hana replied. We're teaching you to survive. Sometimes survival isn't pretty. The final element of the plan was the most controversial. The Prosperity's Edge itself would lead the most dangerous attack run, using its mining equipment to punch through the Harvester command ship's defenses. It's a mining vessel, Ninji protested. It wasn't built for this kind of stress. Neither were we, Hana said. But here we are anyway. On the night before the battle, the crew of the Prosperity's Edge gathered in their small common room. They were about to lead an alien fleet against impossible odds, using tactics that violated every principle of sensible warfare. Anyone having second thoughts? Hana asked. Tayan shook his head. I've seen what those machines do to planets. Strip mining on a galactic scale. If we don't stop them here, they'll keep going until they reach human space. The Vellani are good people, Jiwan added. They don't deserve to be extinct because they were too peaceful to fight a war. Minji was quiet for a moment, then spoke. We're doctors, engineers, miners. We're not soldiers. But maybe that's exactly what this situation needs. Wu Zeng grinned. Besides, when has anyone ever accused humans of being sensible? Through the viewport, they could see the Vellani fleet forming up around them. Graceful ships that looked like works of art, crewed by beings who had never known violence until 6 months ago. In a few hours, they would all fly into battle against an enemy that had already proven unbeatable. One more thing, Hana said. Win or lose, we're making history tomorrow. First humans to fight alongside aliens. First time anyone has stood up to the harvesters. Whatever happens, We're proving that different species can work together when it matters." As they prepared for sleep, each crew member dealt with the approaching battle in their own way. Tajun checked and rechecked his equipment modifications. Jiwan reviewed the communication protocols one more time. Minji prepared medical supplies for casualties they all hoped wouldn't come. Wu Soon sat at his weapons console, making final adjustments to systems that had never been designed for real combat. The Prosperity's Edge was about to become a warship. Crewed by miners who had never wanted to be warriors. In her captain's quarters, Hana stared out at the stars and thought about the journey that had brought them here. 3 weeks ago, they had been simple miners working an asteroid field. Tomorrow, they would either be heroes or casualties in a battle that would determine the fate of an entire species. She thought about Earth, so far away that light from their battle wouldn't reach home for years. Would anyone there ever know what happened in this distant system? Would they understand why a mining crew had chosen to fight when they could have run? It didn't matter. The choice was made. In the morning, humans and Vellani would fly together into battle against the machines. That consumed worlds. They would fight with courage, determination, and the kind of beautiful insanity that made humans who they were. The Deathworlders had answered the call for help. Now it was time to show the galaxy what that meant. A battle began at dawn, though dawn had no meaning in the empty space between worlds. The combined human Vellani fleet moved toward the Harvester Formation, like a school of fish approaching a pack of metal sharks. "All ships, this is Captain Kim." Hana broadcast on the open channel. "Remember the plan. Phase 1 is textbook. Make them think they know what we're doing." The Vellani ships formed perfect attack formations, their graceful hulls glinting in the distant starlight. They approached. The Harvester fleet, exactly as military doctrine suggested they should. Direct assault on the most logical targets, coordinated weapon strikes, careful preservation of valuable assets. The Harvesters responded exactly as predicted. Their massive ships moved with mechanical precision to counter the attack. Weapons that could crack planets focused on the incoming Vellani vessels. The first phase of the battle looked like every other engagement the machines had fought and won. "They're taking the bait," Wuzong reported from his tactical station. "Harvester ships are moving into standard defensive positions." On the Vellani command ship, Kelthara watched her people die with the stoic calm her species had learned during months of hopeless warfare. Ships that had taken generations to build were reduced to debris in seconds. It was the same story that had played out at 12 other worlds. "Captain Kim," she transmitted, "our losses are mounting rapidly. When do we proceed to Phase 2? "Now," Hannah said simply. What happened next had never occurred in the long history of galactic warfare. The surviving Vellani ships suddenly abandoned every principle of military tactics. Perfect formations dissolved into chaos. Ships scattered in all directions, attacking random targets with no apparent coordination. A cargo hauler that should have been fleeing the battle instead accelerated directly toward a Harvester cruiser. At the last moment, escape pods ejected from the ship as Taeyeon's mining charges detonated, turning the vessel into an expanding cloud of metal fragments that shredded the cruiser's hull. "What are they doing?" transmitted a panicked Vellani pilot, as his ship spun wildly to avoid collision with friendly forces. "Surviving," Hana replied. The Harvester fleet began to show the first signs of confusion. Their coordination algorithms were designed to counter logical military tactics. But there was nothing logical about what they were facing. Ships that should have retreated were attacking. Vessels that should have sought cover were deliberately exposing themselves to enemy fire. "This is Taeyeon," came the engineer's voice over the comm system. "All civilian ships with mining equipment, follow my lead. We're going to give these machines a geology lesson." 6 Vellani mining vessels, their elegant forms modified with human weapons, began attacking a Harvester battleship with industrial drilling equipment. The aliens' advanced shields were designed to stop energy weapons and explosive devices, but they had no protocols for dealing with mining drills that simply bored through the hull at the molecular level. Impossible, breathed Dr. Velenith from a medical ship where he was treating wounded from the first wave. They're using industrial equipment as weapons. Welcome to human engineering, Minji said as she worked to save a Valani pilot who had been injured in an escape pod ejection. If it works, it's not stupid. The Harvester command ship was struggling to process the flood of contradictory data. Every time its algorithms began to identify a pattern in the chaotic battle, the humans would do something that made no sense at all. Ships would suddenly reverse course for no tactical reason. Weapons would fire at empty space while ignoring valuable targets. Phase 3, Hana announced. Time to get really creative. The Prosperity's Edge led a group of heavily modified ships toward the heart of the Harvester fleet. The mining vessel had been transformed into something that looked like a mechanical porcupine, bristling with improvised weapons and drilling equipment. Jiwan, Hana called, start transmitting everything we've got. Music, poetry, random conversations, technical manuals. I want their communication systems completely flooded. Broadcasting. On all frequencies, Jiwan confirmed. They're getting everything from Korean folk songs to mining equipment repair manuals. The effect on the Harvester fleet was immediate and visible. Ships that had moved with perfect coordination began to hesitate. Some vessels stopped responding to commands entirely. Others began attacking their own allies as their identification systems became confused by the chaos. Their command ship is trying to adapt, Wuzong reported, but they can't find a pattern to adapt to. A Valani science vessel, its hull torn open by weapons fire, ejected its entire laboratory section directly into a Harvester cruiser. The collision was spectacular and completely pointless from a tactical perspective, but it forced the enemy ship to waste precious seconds analyzing the threat. This is insane, transmitted Commander Thelanara as his ship spiraled past a Harvester destroyer while firing mining charges from improvised launchers. We're fighting like madmen. No, replied Kelthara, watching the chaos with growing understanding. We're fighting like humans. The turning point came when Taeyun successfully implemented his most insane modification. 3 Villani cargo ships, loaded with mining explosives and piloted by volunteer crews, accelerated to ramming speed toward the Harvester command vessel. Ejecting now, transmitted the lead pilot as his ship hurtled toward the massive enemy vessel. See you on the other side. The 3 ships struck the command vessel within seconds of each other. The first ship's cargo of mining explosives breached the outer hull. The second ship's load of industrial acid ate through the internal supports. The third ship, carrying Taeyun's special surprise, delivered a cargo of mining nanobots directly into the Harvester's central processing core. What are nanobots going to do against a ship that size? Minji had asked when Taeyun explained his plan. They're going to do what they're programmed to do. Taeyun had replied, strip mine everything they encounter. The effect was gradual at first. The Harvester command ship continued to function normally for several minutes. Then its hull began to develop strange holes as the nanobots consumed structural materials. Warning lights flickered as internal systems failed. The massive vessel began to list as its antigrav systems went offline. The command ship is losing coordination with the fleet, Jiwan reported. Individual Harvester ships are reverting to autonomous operation. Without central coordination, the Harvester fleet became vulnerable for the first time. Ships that had fought as a unified force now operated independently, making decisions based on limited information and obsolete tactical data. All ships, Hana broadcast, hit them while they're confused. Everything we've got. The battle became a furious melee as Valani ships swarmed individual harvester vessels. Mining equipment carved through alien hull materials. Improvised weapons. Found gaps in shields that had been designed to stop conventional attacks. Ships that had learned human tactics used speed and unpredictability to overcome superior firepower, but the harvesters were adapting. Individual ships began to coordinate with their nearest neighbors, forming small tactical groups that could respond to local threats. The tide of battle started to shift back toward the machines. "We're losing momentum," Wuzong warned. "They're learning to counter our chaos tactics." That was when Hana made the decision that would be remembered in military academies for generations to come. She pointed the Prosperity's edge directly at the wounded harvester command ship and pushed the engines to maximum power. "All crew to escape pods," she ordered. "We're going to ram the command ship." "Captain," Minji protested, "that ship is still functional. A collision won't destroy it." "No," Hana agreed, "but it'll give Taeyeon's nanobots a direct path to their central core." The Prosperity's edge accelerated toward the massive enemy vessel, its hull groaning under stresses it was never designed to handle. Behind them, escape pods ejected one by one as the crew abandoned ship. "This is either going to be remembered as the most brilliant tactical decision in history," Wuzong said as he prepared to eject, "or the most spectacular failure." "Either way," Hana replied, strapping herself into the captain's emergency pod, "it'll be remembered." The mining ship struck the harvester command vessel like a bullet fired by an angry god. The collision tore through the alien ship's hull and delivered Taeyeon's nanobots directly into the heart of their central processing system. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The harvester command ship, already weakened by the earlier attacks, began to consume itself from the inside. As its central intelligence failed, the coordination signals it had been trying to maintain dissolved into electronic noise. Across the battlefield, harvester ships suddenly found themselves operating without any central guidance. Some continued, fighting according to their last received orders. Others tried to retreat. A few began attacking each other as their identification systems failed completely. "The fleet is breaking up," Kalthara transmitted, her musical voice filled with something. Humans recognized as hope. "The harvesters are retreating." But the battle wasn't over yet. Even without coordination, the surviving harvester ships were still individually powerful and dangerous. And the humans had just sacrificed their only vessel in the desperate gambit. That had broken the enemy formation. The final phase of the battle would determine whether their sacrifice. The rescue ship that picked up the escape pods from the Prosperity's edge was a small Vellani medical vessel, commanded by Dr. Velenith. As the crew of the destroyed mining ship was brought aboard, they could see the final stages of the battle playing out through the medical ship's viewports. "Status report," Hana demanded as soon as she was out of her escape pod, despite the fact that she was technically a rescued refugee with no ship to command. "The harvester fleet is in complete disarray." Kalthara's voice came through the communication system. "Without central coordination, individual ships are making independent decisions. Most are attempting to retreat, but some are still fighting." Taeyeon, nursing a bruised shoulder from his rough ejection, was studying the tactical displays with professional interest. "The nanobots are still working. Look at that command ship." The massive harvester vessel was slowly coming apart as the mining nanobots consumed its internal structure. What had once been a terrifying symbol of mechanical superiority now looked like a dying whale, listing badly and trailing debris as its systems failed one by one. "Our people are pursuing the retreating harvesters," Kalthara continued. "But many enemy ships are still functional. This battle could continue for hours." Minji was moving among the Vellani crew, treating injuries with the battlefield medical techniques she had taught them. "Dr. Velenith, Your people are applying the emergency procedures perfectly. Casualties are much lower than they should be. Your teaching saved many lives today, the Vellani doctor replied. We learned to treat trauma quickly instead of perfectly. Jiwan was at the communication station, monitoring dozens of channels as the chaotic battle continued. Captain, I'm picking up something interesting. The individual harvester ships are trying to communicate with each other, but they can't establish a new command hierarchy. They're stuck in some kind of decision loop. What kind of loop? Wuzong asked. Each ship is waiting for orders from a command authority that no longer exists. They can't decide whether to fight, retreat, or attempt to re-establish coordination. It was exactly what Hana had hoped for. The Harvester's greatest strength, their perfect unity and coordination, had become their greatest weakness when that unity was broken. Kelthara, Hana transmitted, order your ships to stop pursuing the retreating Harvesters. Instead, broadcast surrender demands on all frequencies. Surrender demands? But Captain Kim, machines do not surrender. These aren't just machines anymore. They're confused machines without clear orders. Sometimes confused beings make unexpected choices. The next hour was the strangest in the history of galactic warfare. Vellani ships, following human advice, began broadcasting surrender, demands to mechanical intelligences that had never been programmed to consider such a concept. The results were mixed but encouraging. Some harvester ships simply shut down when faced with a decision their programming couldn't handle. Others attempted to retreat but found their navigation systems compromised by the lingering effects of the human chaos tactics. A few actually transmitted what appeared to be surrender signals, though whether this represented genuine capitulation or simply software failure was unclear. This is unprecedented, Kelthara said as reports came in from across the system. We are achieving victory through confusion rather than destruction. By the end of the day, the Harvester fleet that had seemed unstoppable 12 hours earlier was scattered throughout the system. Some ships had been destroyed in conventional combat. Others had shut down or surrendered. Many had simply fled to the outer system and remained there, apparently unable to decide what to do next. Preliminary damage assessment, reported Commander Thelanara. We lost 37 ships, but most crews were recovered. Harvester losses are estimated at over 60% of their fleet. It was the first military victory against the Harvesters. In the 6 months since they had appeared, the machines that had consumed 12 worlds had been stopped by a combination of human tactics and Vellani courage. But the true significance of the victory became clear over the following days as word of the battle spread throughout the galaxy. Captain Kim, Kelthara said as they stood in the observation deck of the new command ship that had been provided to replace the destroyed Prosperity's Edge. We have received communications from 17 different star systems. Other species want to know how we achieved victory against the Harvesters. What are you telling them? Hana asked. The truth. That the legendary Deathworld warriors came when we called for help, and they taught us to fight like humans. The political implications were staggering. For the first time in galactic history, a species known for violence was being invited to join peaceful civilizations as protectors rather than conquerors. The Vellani had sent ambassadors to dozens of worlds, carrying the message that cooperation between violent and peaceful species was not only possible but necessary. The Galactic Council wants to meet with you, Kelthara continued. They are offering humanity full membership and military alliance status. Tayun, who was overseeing the construction of new defenses around the Vellani homeworld, looked up from his engineering reports. Military alliance? We're miners, not soldiers. You're whatever the galaxy needs you to be, Kelthara said gently. The Harvesters were not the only threat out there. There are other machine intelligences, other dangers that peaceful species cannot face alone. Ji-Wan had been monitoring communications from human space and brought disturbing news. The Harvester fleet that retreated from here hasn't given up. Long-range sensors show them regrouping near the edge of the system, and there are reports of similar machine fleets appearing in other sectors. They're learning from this defeat, Wu Zhang realized. Next time they'll be prepared for chaos tactics. Then we'll have to learn too, Hana said. That's what humans do. We adapt. The weeks that followed saw unprecedented cooperation between human and alien technology. Velani scientists worked with human engineers to develop new weapon systems that combined elegant alien efficiency with brutal human practicality. The results were ships that could fight with both precision and chaos. Depending on what the situation required, Minji established the first interspecies medical training program, teaching both human battlefield medicine to gentle alien healers and alien healing techniques to human medics. The combination proved remarkably effective at saving lives in the dangerous work of building galactic defenses. We're not just miners anymore, she observed one day while watching human and Velani medical teams work together. We're teachers, healers, diplomats. We're whatever we need to be, Hana agreed. The first joint human-alien starbase was completed 6 months after the battle. Built around the wreckage of the Harvester command ship, it served as both a memorial to the victory and a warning to future threats. Ships from dozens of species came to see the place where Deathworlders had answered an alien plea for help and changed the course of galactic history. Captain Hana Kim, now Admiral Hana Kim of the Galactic Defense Initiative, stood in the command center of the new starbase and watched ships arrive from across the galaxy. Humans were no longer alone in the universe, and they were no longer seen as a threat to be feared. Any regrets? Taeyun asked as he joined her at the observation window. About what? Trading a quiet life mining asteroids for all this responsibility. Hannah thought about the question seriously. They had come to the Kepler 442 system as simple miners looking for valuable ore. They were leaving as the founders of the first galactic alliance between violent and peaceful species. Someone set out a call for help, she said finally. We answered. Everything else is just consequences. Outside the starbase, construction continued on the fleet that would carry the combined forces of a dozen species to face whatever threats the galaxy might hold. Human chaos tactics were being taught alongside alien precision techniques. Mining equipment was being converted into weapons of liberation rather than tools of industry. The harvesters will return, Kaleo said, joining them at the window. Our intelligence networks report machine fleets massing in distant sectors. Next time they will be prepared for our tactics. Then we'll just have to be more creative, Wu Zhang said, with the kind of grin that had become famous among alien species as typically human. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Minji added, but it's also full of species willing to work together to defend what matters. And that, Ji-Wan concluded, is something no machine intelligence will ever understand. As the first mixed-species fleet departed the Velani system to establish defensive positions throughout the galaxy, the crew of the former Prosperity's Edge remained behind to oversee the continuing construction of humanity's first alien starbase. They had answered a call for help from strangers and discovered that the galaxy was full of people worth fighting for. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, machine intelligences calculated new strategies to counter the chaos tactics they had learned to fear. The war was not over, but for the first time, since the harvesters had appeared, the forces of life and cooperation had hope. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. They had answered the call for help, and history had indeed been made.